Verse 586. By keeping down the theory of no causation, no birth is demonstrated. Where the theory of no birth is declared, my law I is never destroyed. When the theory of no cause is pointed out, the philosophers are horrified. So what's all this about? And I wasn't sure about this first phrase, by keeping down the theory of no causation. First of all, keeping down, it's got a sense of putting down, hasn't it? Or of dismissing. But how can dismissing the theory of no causation lead to the demonstration of no birth? And there's a footnote to this verse. Professor Suzuki gives a footnote and says that, according to two other sources, it's not the theory of no causation, it's the theory of causation. And I thought, well, maybe that makes sense, because there isn't actually a theory of no causation. The Buddha doesn't talk in terms of theories. There's the realization of no causation. So I thought, well, maybe this is the theory of causation. But then in the next verse, we have the theory of no cause. So Professor Suzuki stuck with no causation, so I think I should as well. But this keeping down, what's the meaning here? It's not putting down. I think it's a sense of hanging on to it as your basic realization. It's where you come from. And it's not a theory, it's a realization. So I'm going to suggest that this first phrase should be read as, by keeping realization of no causation as our basis, the realization of no causation as our basis, we're always coming back to this realization, the realization of no causation. What this means, now this might sound a little bit, wow, what's that all about? But if you've been with me for much of what's gone before, then hopefully it doesn't sound as intimidating as it actually is. The realization of no causation is giving up on the stories. Giving up on the stories that we're told. The stories that we're told about a world out there and how it came to be through such and such a sequence of events. These stories are fine when you inhabit the stories, but in enlightenment practice we've got the option of stepping back into the realization of the fact that they are all stories. We come back to this moment in all its fullness. We realize this fullness because we realize the emptiness of all stories. We come back to this sense of being. And when we do this, when we keep to the realization of no causation, no birth is demonstrated. I'm going to skip ahead a few verses, because these verses are actually about no birth. Verse 591, the doing away with the notion of cause and condition, the giving up of a causal agency, the establishment of the mind only. This I state to be no birth. So no birth is establishment in mind only. No birth means not only do we stop feeding the idea of an external world, we stop feeding the idea of an individual here that this external world is happening to. So, by keeping realization of no causation as our basis, no birth is demonstrated. And this is the important point. It's demonstrated, it's realized. So it's not really a theory, even though the next phrase describes it as such. In fact, I think what I'll do is just substitute the word theory for realization, because the word theory creates somewhat. When the realization of no birth is declared, my law I is never destroyed. And the law I is the eye of truth, the eye that sees things as they really are. The Dharma eye. I don't know if that's what's been translated, but I think that's the meaning of it, Dharma eye. And again, the Dharma eye, we realize this when we're successfully practicing enlightenment. It's quite a relief for me to be doing this right now, because as I look into this verse, I realize that I've been all over the place the last few days. I don't think I've been practicing much at all. So it's good to come back to this. It's good to come back to this in all its freshness. It comes as something of a relief, actually. So this is the law I. So once no birth is realized and declared, the law I is never destroyed. And I suppose what we've got here, the important factor here, is the declaration of no birth. And that's what's happening here, hopefully, in this video. We're declaring no birth, not as a theory, but as a realization once again. We're making it fresh and immediate, because that's the way it is. The trouble is, when you start talking about these things, you get caught up in an idea. You get caught up in theories and ideas. So we have to declare it from a realization of what these terms are pointing to. And when the theory of no cause is pointed out, the philosophers are horrified. And as I've said before, we're all philosophers. We're not just referring to some ivory tower philosophers. We've all got an idea about things. And the idea, if you take it as an idea, that the external world does not exist, that there is no individual, well, where do you go from there? This is the horror of it. There's no more philosophy. You can't philosophize anymore. Because philosophy is about the external world. It is about the individual. It's about the relationship between the two. That's the area of philosophy. When we declare no birth from the realization of no cause, it's the end of all philosophizing. It's the end of all talking.